welcome to ACT UP Live, the weekly cable television show of the AIDS Coalition to Unleash Power. Tonight we're discussing last night's vote by the Board of Education to institute a new AIDS education curriculum in the city schools, and what you're looking at right now is a demonstration outside the Board of Education last night. This is January 19th, Thursday. We are live on the air from 8:30 to 9, and the discussion tonight is condom education and availability in schools and the Board of Education and their policies. You can join us in this conversation by calling us at 212-388-0745. We will be happy to take your calls live on the air during this half hour. I am Ann Northrup of ACT UP New York, tonight's host, and I have with me tonight three guests. Kate Barnhart of ACT UP New York also, and one of the diligent and fantastic leaders of YEL, the Youth Education Lifeline Committee of ACT UP New York. Kate is a relatively recent graduate of the New York City high school system, and therefore knows wherever she speaks, and is a leader in condom availability and distribution and lobbying the Board of Education, and has spent many hours standing outside local schools handing out condoms. We'll talk more about that. Next to Kate is Gary Riotto, an actor and AIDS educator working with Mount Sinai Hospital's Adolescent AIDS Prevention and Treatment Program, specifically their STAR Theater, which goes out into the community to schools, to adolescent groups, and does AIDS education through a theatrical medium. And next to him is Marnie Task, his colleague from STAR Theater, and they got quite theatrical last night at the Board of Education, as you may have read about in your local newspaper, with their condom demonstration done somewhat to the surprise of the Board of Ed members and audience. In fact, we'll ask you about that and ask for a little recreation and theatrical experience for ourselves in a minute. But Kate, why don't you start by telling us what did happen last night at the Board of Ed and what this is all about.
All right, well, last night the Board of Ed voted on the 7th or 9th grade HIV/AIDS curriculum. And this curriculum has been a long time in the pipeline. The curriculum currently in use dates from 1987. So it's definitely time for a new curriculum. Unfortunately, this is not it. This curriculum stresses abstinence, stresses condom failure rates, and basically is not going to save the lives of young people in this city. It also has embedded in it a section of the state law which says it's illegal for people under 17 to have sex. Teachers are supposed to read this section to students before trying to teach them about prevention. So this curriculum is not only fear-based, but it's criminalizing adolescent sexuality.
Well, that's certainly not good news, although I'm not sure you'd get all that from reading about it in the newspaper, which puts a little more positive spin on it. Gary, what's your feeling about this curriculum? You were there last night.
Well, it's interesting. It was actually quite disturbing because hearing people say that we need to put forth things that will hinder young people's experience in growing, expressing themselves, loving, becoming physical, any of the above is really, it hurts. It hurts in a place that it's hard to describe, because it's like, why would we ever want to hinder young people from growing? And there were people there who were parents, who were actually saying, I don't want my child to have knowledge.
Well, it's interesting. I remember going to a high school in Long Island City, I think a few years ago, to do AIDS education with students, and being told in the middle of my presentation that I could not demonstrate condoms. At which point I went off immediately to a meeting with the principal, who reiterated this order, and I basically called him a homicidal maniac. And asked whether, in fact, he was doing a good job of educating his children on condom use, and guess what? He had to let me do condom demonstrations.
Well, I think that a lot of the people that are running the schools, that are on the board, have a great misconception. You know, they think, you know, that these kids are not out there exploring. I mean, yeah, it might be great in a, I don't know, conservative world or whatever, but we are sexual beings. You know, people explore their sexuality at all ages. So I think we can't deny that any longer. I think that, you know, on one hand, it's important to talk about abstinence as a choice, but a lot of kids are not making that choice, and so then to not give them the tools, if they are already engaging in these sexual activities, we might as well give them some tools so that they can then protect themselves.
It becomes a death sentence for, you know, having the temerity to explore sexually. Let me just, again, give the phone number for those who'd like to join us on the phone. We are live on Thursday, January 19th, and anyone who wants to call in will be happy to take your comments or questions at 212-388-0745. Kate, let me play devil's advocate for a second here. Not that I enjoy that, but what the heck.
Sure.
You know, have we may, certainly we believe in promoting growth and exploration and people feeling good about themselves no matter what they're doing, but why not take a view in the world that we're going to put all our resources behind an abstinence-based curriculum? Why not support and encourage more abstinence from intercourse?
So the abstinence-based curriculum, that is not a new idea at all. It's been around for literally hundreds of years.
Literally hundreds of years.
Yeah.
I mean, if you talk about religion and, you know, the old-fashioned beliefs, it was like, you know, you were a bad girl. I mean, boys, you know, that whole rule, like, boys can
Double
go out
standard.
and get laid, but, you know, you didn't talk about it, but women were bad.
Made
So
you
were
wonder who they were
dirty.
having sex with.
Yeah, and so, I mean, abstinence curricula have been around
It's
for
been
the
around,
past.
and it's in
And
every form.
what have we got? We've got young people still getting infected. Abstinence curricula clearly haven't worked. You know, we've got teachers, families, schools have been stressing abstinence for the past 14 years, and the number of adolescents with HIV is doubling every 14 months. So it's clearly not working. We need something new. We need something different.
I'm also waiting for the first teenager who sues their parents for not doing life-saving education at home. All these
Interesting.
parents
Yeah.
who
Yeah.
claim that they're in charge.
Like, to play devil's advocate a little bit more
Sure.
here, I keep trying to put myself in the position of the parent. And I think it must be very hard as a parent to acknowledge that your child might be in junior high school and having sex, especially when you might have grown up during a generation where you did not do that, where you did not have sex until you were married, or where you did not experiment, or where you did not express yourself physically that way when you were younger. So I keep trying very hardly, it's not an easy thing, to say, I'm trying to understand where certain parents are coming from. But it's just a difficult thing, because you'd think you'd want to change the road that you just drove down for your young
Well, yeah, we have a caller, so I'm going to go to that. No, I think we all have 50 more things we want to say, but let's start by letting our caller in. Daryl, is it? Merrill.
Hello.
Hi.
Hi, it's Earl.
Hi, Earl.
Hi. Okay. I've been watching your show, guys. I don't know. I guess you saw the front page of the New York Times today,
Yes.
where
Yes.
Pataki is cutting Medicaid. I'm also.
Actually, that's my old college roommate who's cutting Medicaid.
Oy vey, Oh God.
Yeah.
Anyway, well, I'm a social worker. I'm really concerned. I'm a social worker at Bellevue Hospital. As you know, that the city hospitals are being hit very hard with cuts. And I was wondering, with a lot of the AIDS programs that are diminishing all over the city, especially with Pataki's cuts, is ACT going to get involved, like as far as like going up to Albany and getting involved with that? Because if you guys are, I'll definitely be behind you.
I think not only will ACT UP do it, but also more mainstream organizations are doing that too. I think there is a heavy lobbying push on, so I would certainly urge you to join us, join the Empire State Pride agenda, join all the social service agencies
Right.
are lobbying. But
The AIDS and Adolescents Network, if you're interested particularly in the education issue.
anyone know of any particular efforts aimed at Albany yet?
Well, AIDS and Adolescents has been organizing a campaign. I don't know the details of it.
Okay, and I also think it's a little early in terms of the new administration and the legislature. While these proposals have been made internally by Lieutenant Governor McCoy, hi Betsy, and others, they're far from any final proposals yet, but of course it's never too early to lobby.
Right, because I really feel that the worst is yet to come. I mean, first we had to deal with Giuliani, and now we're dealing with Pataki, and look at Congress. It's pretty scary out there.
And Al D'Amato, who's now dating Claudia Cohen, according to Liz Smith.
The Democrats, we got to get strong again, but I'm all behind you guys. I think you guys are doing a great job, and I'll definitely call ACT UP and just find out what's
Great.
going on.
Common fact to the Monday night meetings, everyone's invited. Monday night, 7:30 at the Community Center, 208 West 13th Street in Manhattan between 7th and 8th. Feel free to join us there. Or call us at our workspace, our office, 564 AIDS, for more information about all of this. We also have Brian on the line. Brian, are you there?
Marty, Gary,
Hi.
Brian.
what's happening?
How are you?
I just wanted to say that being a teenager, if it becomes law that it's illegal to have sex if you're 17 or younger, then
It's already illegal.
yeah, well, then there are a bunch of criminals out there.
They don't enforce the law, and that's why it's ridiculous as part of the curriculum. This law has only been used once in the past, the recent past, and it was a case that was two 16-year-olds having consensual sex. This law was used against these kids, and the case got thrown out of court because the law is so archaic.
Yeah, well, I don't see a point, neither does anybody else.
Well, Gary and Marty, you go out into the community and do these presentations. What do you hear from kids out there about what they're doing?
Oh, wow.
A myriad of questions.
Bombarded with every time we're there after the show's over. Anything from, if I'm masturbating, is it not going to grow anymore, meaning my penis, to will I get a disease, to questions about getting your period, to about having sex, condom breakage, contraction of diseases, everything you could imagine.
Yeah, and normalization of a lot of these things.
Well, in fact, these are not questions that normally get answered for anybody, anywhere.
For anybody, and it was very interesting because, like, last night when we were at this meeting, a lot of people got up and, a couple of the very conservative people that spoke were like, I'm really horrified that I have to say this word, but, I don't think we should be talking about oral or anal sex. I mean, like, that oral and anal are somehow, like, the most foul words ever put on this
What was
earth.
that guy who said you could never clean out a sewer, referring to anal intercourse?
Exactly.
No matter how much bleach you poured down, you couldn't clean a
guess.
sewer?
It's like, so again, we should talk to young people and we should use words like nose and shoulder, but not vagina, labia, or penis, or any of those other things, because they feel uncomfortable with them. So thus, we need to instill that feeling of discomfort in young people.
I've always been struck by the fact that we blame young people for risk behavior. Oh, those stupid teenagers, they think they're immortal, they can't control themselves, blah, blah, blah. Who are their role models for risk behavior but adults who drive drunk, cross the middle of the street, smoke cigarettes, drink, do all
Television ads.
on and on and on. And
Yeah,
yet we take it out on kids who tend to be an oppressed group who we think we have under some control. The tragedy is that that's a real illusion.
Yeah.
You hand out condoms and information to kids going into schools, junior highs and high schools around the city. What do you hear from them?
Well, let's see. One young woman this morning took hers and said, "Great, a condom, I collect these." I wonder what her
Great.
mother would have said about that collection. But we get a lot of kids who will, occasionally we get people who drop flyers. And what's interesting is that people point out the flyers on the ground as a sign that this is not successful, that the kids don't want this. But if you look at those flyers, there are never any condoms left in those flyers, so the kids want them, and they come back for more. They like hang out and chat with us. And they say, hey, cool, I'm going to give this to my brother, my cousin, my friend, my teacher sometimes, so they really, and it gets them talking. It forces the school to confront these issues. And, I've never had a kid complain or have anything but a positive reaction. I have, however, been personally attacked by numerous parents.
Or perhaps officials of schools.
Yeah, we always get, they call security. Security says, get the hell off Board of Ed property if they're that kind. Sometimes the police harass us.
And just sort of a little tangent, like giving out these condoms, part of what we were trying to say last night was that just because these kids are taking these condoms, maybe they are collecting them, maybe they are not using them right now. I mean, we've had some shows where some kids come up to us, and they are, this one girl came up to me one time, she's like, I'm not having sex, no way, I'm a virgin, I'm going to wait till I get married, and that was her choice, and she's like, but my friend, she does it, I'd like to take a bunch for her, and I'm going to show her how to do this, and, and how do you do it again, and, going over the whole thing so that she could then pass this information on to somebody who needed it, and that, you know, she'll be able to use it when she's ready.
And it's good for people just to play with condoms before they have to
That's
use
what I
them.
was gonna say.
The kids talk about this when we do it at the schools, and then they're more comfortable talking about condoms
As
with each
soon
other.
as you give them the permission and it's not a bad thing,
Right.
they are off and running.
And standard rule, people do not volunteer to do things they're not good at. We need these kids
is
to
true.
achieve a sense of mastery. Speaking of which, let's talk about your demonstration of condom use last night at the Board of Ed. How did you decide to do that? What did you do? Show us, recreate this for
It's
us.
really interesting because we were there and we had gotten there, and Dr. Stadell Berlin is our producer and runs the clinic up at the hospital
Yep.
and the whole program, and is the founder. And we were there with her, and I was watching people get up and give little speeches and share experiences, and I was like, this just is not impactful enough right now. I'm like, I think there has to be something that's just going to make just a little bit of a splash. So I kind of turned to her for a little guidance, and she was like, just go for it, do it. So I was like, I think we should go up there and do a condom demo, based on the fact that we were discussing that they were feeling, or part of what they feel is that in using condoms or knowing how to use them or showing them, young people will be more promiscuous.
Or that by showing someone how to use a condom,
do
that
it.
it gives you the permission to go out and do it, and that in fact it'll turn you on. It'll be like, oh my gosh, now I have to use this thing
Which is
right
profoundly
away.
disrespectful, because it's saying young
Exactly.
people can't think for ourselves. We're going to see this condom and be like, woo, we have to.
And yes,
I'm only embarrassed that it took this long to have this happen at a meeting and that ACT UP didn't think of this 5 years ago. Yeah.
Well,
so
we've worn
congratu-
condom suits to the meeting.
Oh, okay. Well, then I take it back, but
First step.
congratulations to you. But so what'd you do?
we walked up to the podium, instead of introducing ourselves or saying hello or good evening or kissing ass, we
Right.
just actually kind of,
Right,
we
we
actually
say
just
that.
kind of said, this is a condom, and then we started.
And then I said, so the first thing you do with your condom is that you check the expiration date, and I see here that my condom expires, let's see, 6/96, so I have a long way to go.
Plenty of time.
The next thing you do with your condom is that you gently tear open the package with your fingers,
And not your teeth.
That's right, because your teeth tend to tear the condom. So then the next thing you do with your condom is that you pinch the tip so that you have a space for the spermatozoa to go. And then you have to have an erection to put it on, right? And
Cannot
of
put a
course,
condom on a limp penis.
This
Not
is
at all.
true, not a good idea. So that's not really quite the size. There we go, that's a little more like it.
Fine.
And then you
Realism at all times.
Of course, of course. So then we slowly roll it all the way down to the base, making sure there's no air inside.
And a nice model, having your partner put it on you. That can be
That's
very
Quite
enjoyable,
stimulating,
too.
I want
Yeah.
you to know.
Exactly,
I'm presently
exactly.
tantalized. So then you do
So
what you're
then
going
we
to do.
do what we got to do, and then after ejaculation, you pull out, holding it at the base.
Holding it at the base, you turn away from your partner, you take the condom off your penis, tie, and discard properly. So then at that point, we actually gave a little moment of silence, and I kind of looked them all in the eye, and I said, based on what you have just seen, folks, I want to know if each of you are going to go home and have sex this evening.
The
And
best
10 people
question
said
anybody's
yes.
ever asked the board.
Well, their
So
faces!
beautiful.
It was wonderful.
Their faces
They were in
completely
shock.
shifted.
Their eyes just slowly rolled a little bit back, and their mouths just slowly dropped down. It's really kind of, I was like,
It was very
I did
interesting.
the right thing.
Did it change the tenor of the conversation in the room at all? Did you have any impact?
Well, a lot of things happened. The first thing we did was pull out the condom and say, this is a condom. And immediately we had this woman trumpeting behind us. Oh my God, this is disgusting.
You are
There
perverts.
children
This
in
is
this
not
room.
good.
And somebody later in the testimony, somebody got up and called them assholes. And
Yeah.
a lot of people referred to instead of screaming about me and ACT UP, they were down on these guys.
yeah.
It was a nice change.
Shift the pressure a little bit there.
So that can be relieving. One more small interruption. Call us to join us on this live call-in show at 388-0745. We'll be happy to take your comments or questions live on the air right now. Thursday the 19th, it's 10 minutes of 9. Okay, well, so we don't think this curriculum is entirely adequate. What is it missing? What should it have that it doesn't have?
Condom demonstrations in the
Yeah,
ninth
I mean,
grade.
if you're going to talk about protecting these children, then you should talk about everything. I mean, abstinence is clearly a part of it, but you have to cover all your bases.
We have to normalize a lot. We have to normalize language. We have to normalize different types of behavior, different sexual preferences. We have to normalize the whole gamut. And until we start normalizing, we're really not going to
Yeah,
move
and
too far.
specifically what's missing is teachers are not allowed to talk about oral and anal intercourse in the 7th and 8th grade unless students ask.
Right.
In the 9th grade, the teacher may mention those two if they want to. 9th graders in junior high school, which is about 10 to 15% of the city's 9th graders, will not receive condom demonstrations in school, although 9th graders in high school buildings, who are the same age, etc., get these condom demonstrations.
They fear that the condoms are too close in distance
Too
to younger
close
people.
to the 8th graders.
You know
oh
what's
no.
really interesting though, like that they allow a little bit more education for the high schoolers. Just in the performing that we've been doing, we've started performing a lot more for junior high school students, and I have to say that they are ripe for the picking.
That's
They
right.
have so many questions, and it seems to me like, not that the high schoolers don't have questions, but they're almost a little shut down now.
Yeah, sure. The
Right.
walls get built up really quickly.
know,
Well, the
So
peer
it's-
pressure sets in, and some very rigid roles get
Well,
established.
peer pressure can work for us, though. I mean, when we're handing out
Oh, I
condoms
think it's
at
the
a
key,
at
the
a
key.
school, you know, kids will be walking down the block. Their friends will have already gotten theirs, hanging out. They start screaming, "Yo, man, take one!" And kids who otherwise would be like across the street, come over, check it out, and you know.
I think that's the whole philosophy behind ACT UP's program of being on the street to hand
Yeah.
out information
Yeah.
and condoms is to create that kind of, it's cool, it's hip, it's the thing to do. But I have found going into high schools and junior highs to talk to students that the relationships in which they are having intercourse are so abysmal that becomes a fundamental issue, that you absolutely must teach the mechanics of this. You must empower everybody with this information and practice, but there still remains the fundamental issue of how people interrelate, and I have never been more horrified than by, for instance, high school girls telling me how little power they have in these relationships. And how much, and you know, if guys don't want to use condoms, that's the end of it, and there's just no getting around it. Does Star Theater deal with those kinds of negotiation issues and empowerment issues in what you do?
Yeah.
Yeah, I think the basis for everything we do is clearly communication. And
Normalization and communication. It's a combination of both.
yeah, and I think that in giving teenagers these tools, by normalizing, you know, body parts and by normalizing these activities, they become more empowered. So that then they feel like they can talk to their partner about these things. You know, and they could, yes, have a various sorted backgrounds where they necessarily don't have a lot of self-confidence about who they are or anything like that. But like then when they start to understand themselves, you know, at such a base level, they then start to communicate and start to stand up for themselves and value their lives. So then they start taking responsibility for it.
And that's part of the amazing thing about working peer-to-peer, because like Brian, who just called in, is part of Star Theater. He actually goes to collegiate high school. And so it's like a
Oh,
mixture.
you've outed Brian now. Yeah.
It's a mixture. We actually performed at his school today. It's a mixture of older people who are actors
Yeah.
and younger people who are actors / still in high school.
Right.
And by combining the two, when we go into the school system, it's peer-to-peer. So all of a sudden, peers are learning from peers. Then we do role play, and we do breakout groups, and we do all sorts of things. So then by doing all of those things that Marnie was saying, we then do it on a peer-to-peer level. So it engages them
Much better.
really
Yeah, it
quickly.
really helps because, you know, when you go into a room to do AIDS education, I'm sure you guys feel it. People are so used to being lied to about sexuality and HIV/AIDS. They're so used to having stuff left out. that when you walk in and say, "Hi, I'm going to talk to you about HIV/AIDS," people turn off. They're like, "Oh, yeah, right." And so the first thing you have to say before you even say who you are is like, "Look, I'm here to be upfront. I'm here to give you information. I'm here to give you, you know, not to tell you what to do, but to give you information so you can make your own informed choices about what's best in the context of your own life."
I generally say I'm here to talk about sex, drugs, and rock and roll, but
And-
they're generally too young to understand
Understand
that
that.
preference.
We kind of dwindled it down to just sex. We're here to talk about
Right.
sex.
We're going to talk about sex, and then they get very interested.
Yeah.
And the other thing that I was going to say, aside from that, is that the more that you talk about it, the more they know about sex, the less curious they are.
And the
because
easier
then
it
the
gets.
lights are turned on. I mean, you know, as a teenager, you're like, ooh, I want to find out what all this stuff is.
Right.
So if somebody doesn't tell you, you're going to go out and find out for yourself. So if we give them the information, there's nothing mysterious about it anymore. You know, then they can go, and most often than not, they actually choose not to have sex right away.
Because they know the consequences.
Because they know the consequences, and also they're more informed. It's not like this box that they have to break open and find out what's
Right.
inside. They know what's inside.
Right.
So,
All right. One caller identified the need to lobby state government on some of these issues. We are certainly facing budget cuts across the board, I'm sure, for education as well as treatment and everything else.
All youth services.
All youth services are being cut. It is tragic what is happening. I say cut the defense budget of New York City and then we'll be in better shape. But what in fact is planned in the future? What are we going to be,
All right,
is the Board of
well,
Ed going to continue to deal with these issues?
What's happening is there's a curriculum writing panel called the HIV Advisory Council, which has been stacked with conservatives, is chaired by a man who is blatantly homophobic. They just wrote this terrible 7th through 9th grade curriculum, and now they're cutting the high school curriculum. What's going on, what we're seeing here is a systematic attempt to dismantle AIDS education in New York City. So the question is, what do we do about it? Well, the first thing we're going to do is keep putting the information directly into the hands of young people. So we're going to be out there in the streets every week handing out condoms. We have a new informational zine that will be going out in a few weeks. We also will be working on the Board of Ed. We're going to be continuing to demand the resignation of the conservatives on the HIV/AIDS Advisory Council. We're asking for experts on the council, you know, people who know something about young people, you know. Gee, there are no, you know, like maybe even a voting student. Wow,
I was
what a
going to say, or maybe
concept.
even including students. That was something I walked
There
away.
are students on the council, but they're not allowed to vote. The student rep on the New York City Board of Ed can't vote. So, but then we'll also be, the 7th through 9th curriculum was approved unanimously by the Board of Ed. It now goes to the State Ed Department for a compliance review. We have a chance to intervene there, although with our new governor, that's not much of a chance. We'll be taking it to legal action. We may be able to knock out that section of the state law because it's out of context. We'll be going, after it comes back from state ed, it'll be going to the local school boards. And that's where people out there can really have an impact, because school board by school board, they can make changes in this curriculum. But people in various communities, you have to go to your school board and urge them to make these changes. So we'll be lobbying local school boards.
And school board meetings are a lot
I know,
of fun.
they're a lot of fun, especially to disrupt. And then the high school curriculum will be coming up.
And I tell you, it is a hell of an education to go to a local school board meeting.
Yeah.
You will not believe who's running your local
Yeah,
school.
so, you know, there'll be a lot of fun things coming up. And Yell meets Wednesdays, 6 p.m. at the ACT UP Workspace, which is 135 West 29th Street. For more information about that, you can call 212-564-AIDS.
Correct. And again, you can come to Monday night's ACT UP meetings at 7:30 at the Lesbian and Gay Community Services Center. Join Yell Wednesday night, 6 o'clock.
You guys have a pitch you want to make?
In front of schools.
Yeah,
If you have any connection with a youth group or school, call the Mount Sinai Adolescent AIDS Program and get them to come perform for your group.
right,
or get us funding. We're desperately, because of the things we were talking
Or
about.
go
Right,
lobby
because
everybody.
we have
Thank
been
you
cut.
for joining us this Thursday evening, and we'll see you next week. Thank you, and good night from the AIDS Coalition to Unleash Power. Act up, and good night.